Hello and welcome back to Hestia's Muse, podcast for astrological devotionals. My name is Liliana Blackstar, and I am here to bring you a spiritual devotional of self-discovery and personal growth that is in some way inspired by astrology. Join me to tune into astrological transits and the Wheel of the Year for inspiration in your greatest task in life, to know yourself. Hello again. I am so happy that you have returned. I am back with another Tarot Astrology Devotional for you. In this series, I have been talking about tarot cards through the lens of astrology. And so it's an astrological study and a tarot study combined in one. It's a great way to deepen your understanding of the tarot or deepen your understanding of astrology by doing a side-by-side type of study. And it's also great guidance for, some personal self-discovery if you're doing some kind of spiritual devotionals or journaling or meditation work. This is designed to give you a little bit of guidance for going deeper with the archetypes of the tarot or of astrology in your personal practice. So, I am back and we are doing the Nine of Pentacles this week. So each of the tarot cards are in some way associated with an astrological sign, a decan, a season, or a planet. The Nine of Pentacles is associated with the second decan of Virgo. This is the middle section of Virgo. Decans are subdivisions of signs. Each sign is divided into three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so this is the middle section, and it goes from 10 degrees Virgo through 19 degrees Virgo. This decan is sub-ruled by the planet Venus. So each sign is ruled by a planet, and then each decan is also sub-ruled by a planet. So you can think of the sub-ruler as like a shift manager. So the entire sign of Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury. But this middle section, these middle 10 degrees of Virgo, are also sub-ruled by Venus. So therefore, you could also interpret the Nine of Pentacles as having a Mercury and Venus influence, or to represent the energy of Venus in Virgo. Now, Venus does not have to be in Virgo for this card to be relevant. Venus in Virgo is not the only way that this energy manifests astrologically. So it helps to think of Venus as just strongly influencing this particular section of Virgo energy. And that this card should be interpreted by blending the archetypes of Virgo, Mercury, the planet that rules all of Virgo, and then Venus, the sub-ruler of this decan. So let's take a look at the Nine of Pentacles, shall we? Also known as the Nine of Coins. Some decks refer to the suit of earth element as coins rather than pentacles. So some keywords and concepts for the Nine of Pentacles card are abundance, accomplishment, comfort, discipline, elegance, enjoyment, grace, harvest, independence, luxury, materialism, prosperity, restraint, sacrifice, satisfaction, security, self-control, self-reliance, and well-being. The overall energy and lesson of the Nine of Pentacles card. Generally, this is a card of personal accomplishment, material well-being, and a comfortable, self-sustaining life. Generally, we see this card and we go, oh, things are going pretty well in this area for you. There's some success happening. There is some luxury or enjoyment being experienced, or going to be experienced very soon. There's a sense of abundance and accomplishment, and comfort, etc. So in the image of this card in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith version of the card, we often will see a figure standing in a lush garden surrounded by the fruits of their labor. They exude an air of refinement and grace, and they are typically accompanied by a bird such as a falcon. And this is a domesticated bird. And also a little detail that I like in the Rider-Waite-Smith version is along the ground is a tiny little snail. So I want to talk for a moment about the bird, because this domesticated bird is a falcon, and it represents mastery over the environment and mastery over impulses. The falcon is a hunting bird, and in this case it has been trained and domesticated, so there are elements here about discipline, restraint, and self-control. Additionally, anyone who has grown a garden knows that it takes a lot of work, attention to detail, and sacrifice to successfully grow a garden to the point that you get really good rewards, right? A lot of sacrifice of your time and your attention have gone into the process of growing this garden. So the type of reward and abundance and luxury that this card is talking about is the type that has been earned from disciplined effort, attention to detail, discernment, and self-control. This card suggests that you have reached a point in your journey where you can enjoy the fruits of your hard work and dedication. There's some kind of financial stability, independence, and a sense of luxury or a job well done. This card encourages you to appreciate the finer things in life and take pride of your achievements. It's like, are you slowing down to smell the roses? Are you taking time to really enjoy and luxuriate in the beautiful things that are around you? Have you taken the time to really appreciate the little things, right? Taking a stroll in the garden and really just taking the time to just luxuriate in all of the textures and colors and smells that you only notice if you're paying attention to detail and slowing down, right? You don't get all of that experience of enjoying the garden in the same way if you're rushing through it or if you're distracted and not paying attention. So this card also reminds us of the importance of self-reliance and the satisfaction that comes from knowing that you can provide for yourself. The image in this card is meant to portray a woman or any gender who has devoted themselves to some kind of hard work, and that hard work has paid off and they are not dependent on anyone else. She has grown this garden herself. She has trained the falcon, and now she is reaping the benefits of this hard work, and no one is doing it for her. So back to the energy of discipline and self-control that this card is talking about with gardening, right? Sometimes this card represents that there is still some patience and self-control needed, as the fruit might be almost ripe, but not quite. It's like sometimes this card is representing, oh, you're almost there, just a little bit further, don't give up yet. Because sometimes we can see the benefit of our hard work, but that doesn't mean it's time to harvest the fruits or eat them up yet. They might need a couple more days on the vine to fully mature and ripen. Or sometimes the harvest is not the end process. This card often shows grapes. In the Rider-Waite-Smith version, there are grapes on the vine. The grapes look ripe. But wine is not something that is immediately enjoyed as soon as the grapes are ripe. The grapes have to be harvested, but then we have to begin the process of fermentation and distillment. So overall, this card conveys a message of prosperity and a well-deserved period of enjoying the rewards of your efforts. But that effort comes through patience, focus, self-discipline, a discernment of knowing what steps to do first, what to do next, knowing exactly when to harvest, when to fertilize, when to prune, etc. So there is a lot of attention to detail that is presumed in this card. That's why I love that this card relates to the energy of Virgo, obviously, but also to Venus. Or we can think about it, we can interpret this card a little more clearly by adding in the layer of interpretation of Venus in Virgo. So when we hear about Venus in astrology, it's often associated with themes of love, romance, passion, and those are undoubtedly significant aspects of Venus's influence. But Venus can more broadly be described as the planet of beauty and desire. Venus influences what we desire, so what we long for and what we crave. Venus rules over what brings us pleasure and what we judge to be beautiful or attractive. So that's what leads into themes of love and romance and passion, right? Because what we deem to be beautiful, what we deem to be attractive, what kind of people bring us pleasure, etc. But it's not just about people. It's about all of the things in life, the five senses, the enjoyment of the five senses, the things that bring us pleasure, the things that bring us a sense of beauty, etc. So when Venus goes into the sign of Virgo, it influences our desires and what brings us pleasure through the lens of Virgo's discernment. Virgo is the sign of discernment, of service, of self-sacrifice. Virgo is the sign that pays attention to detail and wants to get things right. It knows that there's a certain order of operations in order to get things done. Virgo relates to the energy of like digesting things or breaking things down into their smallest components to understand how each little piece works and where it goes and what it means. And then you take all that information, that attention to detail, and you can make really good, well-informed choices. And then those choices are generally about helping people, healing people, being of service to others, or practicing some kind of devotion. So the Venus just makes all of this Virgo energy more attractive to us when Venus is in that sign. Venus in Virgo helps us find pleasure through practical and detail-oriented approaches to life. A pleasure is found in focusing on the various facets of details in our lives, from our well-being, our health, our work, our finances, and all of that adds up to, a enjoyment of like the little things, as this card was talking about slowing down and enjoying the little things, right? So it's a time when we can refine our routines and make improvements and find joy in the precision of everyday living. Venus wants to increase pleasure, right? And Virgo's really good at paying attention to details. So when you put them together, you have Venus wanting us to really refine our routines and the steps that we're taking, with the end goal of making improvements to how we live our daily life to increase the amount of pleasure that we're feeling. So Venus here can be very concerned with what our health routines are, because when we feel healthy, we feel good, right? Our cleaning routines, our household care routines, Venus wants to spruce those up a bit, because when our house is clean and organized, we feel more enjoyment and more pleasure as we exist in that environment. Right? So there's all these little things that Venus in Virgo can be bringing to our attention, all the little things that could be better, like all the little details that we could change to improve the amount of pleasure and ease in our life. So Venus is considered to be fallen when it is in the sign of Virgo. So in astrology, when a planet is fallen, it is in the opposite sign where it is exalted. Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. There's a lot of ease for Venus when it's in the sign of Pisces. But when it's in Virgo, when it's fallen, that means that the natural qualities and energies associated with Venus are not easily or comfortably expressed in the sign of Virgo. So the attributes typically associated with Venus, such as love, beauty, harmony, and indulgence, face challenges or restrictions in the sign of Virgo. And so that's not necessarily an easy place for Venus to be. I did already talk about, like, Venus can find pleasure and beauty in Virgo, but it's not the easy type of pleasure and enjoyment that Venus can find in a sign like Taurus or like Pisces. So there's a little bit of a challenge here. Virgo is an earth sign known for practicality, precision, attention to detail. It is more focused on analysis and efficiency, whereas Venus would prefer to be more focused on aesthetic and sensual qualities. So as a result, when these analytical energies of Virgo are applied to Venus, there can be a tendency towards being overcritical or overthinking things, right? It might manifest as a challenge to fully relax, or difficulty sinking in and enjoying yourself, because you might constantly be analyzing the situation on how it could be better. You want to be seeking out the flaws in order to remove them. It's the princess and the pea syndrome, where that one little lump under the pile of mattresses is getting all of the attention and therefore kind of taking away from the enjoyment of the softness of all the mattresses. So Venus in Virgo can have extremely high standards and be very selective when it comes to matters of the heart, matters of enjoyment and pleasure, or aesthetic preferences. Venus can and does feel beauty and pleasure while in Virgo, but this pleasure is somewhat restrained, disciplined, and controlled. This is another reason that Venus doesn't really particularly like being in Virgo, because Venus doesn't want to be restrained. Venus likes to be indulgent. Venus likes instant gratification, right? But Virgo is about discipline and control, so there's a restraint here. And Virgo ends up teaching Venus the value of discernment, that sometimes pleasure is actually increased by waiting for the right moment instead of acting on impulse. Venus in Virgo learns that sometimes the best reward comes after some sacrifice of time and effort, or that waiting somehow makes the reward better. So I would sometimes associate Venus with high fashion, right? The enjoyment of fine clothing and beautiful adornments for the body is very Venus. Yet Venus in Virgo is the placement that reminds me of the work that goes on behind the scenes of the fashion industry and the commitment and devotion of the fashion designer, the seamstress. They are measuring and cutting the beautiful fabric perfectly and spending hours bent over the sewing table, jabbing their fingers with needles and straining their eyes to create this beautiful article of clothing. And so the end result is something amazing and beautiful and high tier, like expensive, right? But there was this very Virgo energy that went into the creation of that beautiful high fashion design, and that's not often seen. It's not in the spotlight, but the person who sewed that fabric together and designed that piece, like, they did sacrifice a lot of their time, a lot of their comfort. Their own ease and pleasure was sacrificed for a time in order to achieve this beautiful outcome. And I see that energy here in the Nine of Pentacles. This is the achievement that we're talking about with that card, the achievement that comes after this hard work, this devotion, this attention to detail. We look back again at this figure on the Nine of Pentacles card. They are certainly Venusian. They seem to have refined tastes, an eye for beauty, an interest in the arts. However, they also have the vibe of someone who is a hard worker, a self-made business person who pays close attention to detail. Training a falcon is not a job for someone who is not willing to put in a lot of work and devotion, right? Growing this massive garden is not the job of someone who only halfway puts effort into it. So this is someone who is that self-made business person who's paying close attention to detail, showing up and working hard, and the Nine of Pentacles is showing the reward of that hard work. it at first looks like a card of pleasure and enjoyment. There's a lot of abundance here. But the details, like the snail, remind us that that enjoyment came with time and patience. The hooded, trained falcon reminds us that this abundance or reward came only with self-control and learning to discipline one's own hungers and desires. And even the detailed dress worn by a mature woman in the garden reminds us of how the finer things in life take time. Grapes do not instantly turn into wine. There's a detailed process and a lot of patience that comes first. So Venus is the part of us that wants to experience all kinds of pleasure. And Venus in Virgo, the Venus of this card, reminds us that sometimes instant gratification is not the best kind of pleasure. Sometimes the best pleasure comes from waiting, from having the discipline to take all the steps in the process, from working hard and having the self-control to not only show up and work on that garden every day, but then to not eat the fruit before it's ripe. So here in the middle of Virgo season, it is interesting to think about this card in association with the season. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, it is the very end of summer. It is harvest season. It is starting to feel like fall. We're starting to have probably some more fall-like weather, but it's still about another 2 weeks until that fall equinox, when fall officially begins. This is the very middle of Virgo season, and the fall equinox is on the very first day of Libra season, so the day after Virgo season ends. And so it's one of those little reminders that, like, yes, there's a lot of abundance, there's a lot of harvesting going on, but it's not quite done yet. And there's still some hard work to do. When you harvest the crops, you still have to do some work of preserving them if you want that food to last through the fall and winter months. Or there's going to be fermentation processes happening, or salting, and all the different methods of preservation. And so it's also a reminder to slow down and make sure that you are preserving that which you have created. You don't want it to be that just instant gratification of Venus energy that's like, it was good, but it didn't last, right? How can you take the things that you have worked on and turn them into something sustainable that is going to last you and keep on feeding you or fulfilling you for a longer period of time? So you can ask yourself these questions as a devotional practice with this card and with the energies of Venus and Virgo. Remember, it's not to not limit yourself to just thinking of Venus in Virgo for this card, but just thinking of any planet that's moving through that middle section of Virgo is going to be influenced by Venus energy, no matter where Venus is specifically. So right now, at the time of me recording this, the sun is moving through this middle section of Virgo. Venus is not there, but there is a Venus influence on the sun at this time of year because the sun is going through that decan that is subruled by Venus. So I do have a list of some questions that you can ask yourself. You can journal them. You can draw tarot cards to have a divination method of answering these questions for yourself. And this is just to help guide you in using this card or the energy of this decan as a devotional practice of self-growth and self-discovery. So you can pause after each question to think about it, or to write down the question so that you can answer it later. So what have you been working on diligently and patiently? What in your life is almost ready, but needs more patience and more work before it is complete? How do you respond when you need to wait or be patient? What is your relationship with self-control or self-discipline? What parts of your life do you need more self-discipline and restraint? How do you celebrate abundance and practice gratitude in your life? Are you taking time to slow down and smell the roses? Are you noticing all that is around you that is beautiful and pleasant, or are you rushing around too much to enjoy the little things? And what in your life is good, but could be even better if you applied more effort, more attention, and more discipline? All right, I hope that you have enjoyed this recording and this podcast episode, and that you have gotten a lot out of this. I hope you take some time with the energy of Venus and the energy of the Nine of Pentacles, and come back to this recording anytime that you want to focus on that energy a little bit more. You can help support my podcast and the other astrological work that I do by joining my Patreon at www.patreon.com/HestiasMuse. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Hestia's Muse, and you can visit my website, hestiasmuse.net, to find out more about me and how you can get a personal astrology reading with me. All right, I hope you'll have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye!